kingdom no one remembers. There's a strange kind of silence that lives in history, not the kind you hear in an empty room, not even the quiet of a sleeping town at night. This silence is deeper. It's the kind that hides things, the kind that slowly erases stories, until it feels like they were never there at all. Tonight, we begin with one of those silences. Somewhere long before our time, there was a kingdom, not a small village, not a passing settlement, a real kingdom, with walls, with people, with rulers, with a life that moved day after day under the sun and stars like any other place that ever existed. And then it was gone. No great war, no famous battle, no dramatic ending written in big bold letters, just gone. If that sounds a little unbelievable, that's fair. Most of us grow up thinking history works like a timeline. Things happen, they get recorded, and they stay there forever, like a giant notebook that nobody loses. But that's not really how it works. History forgets things all the time. Sometimes it forgets on purpose. Now here's the odd part. This kingdom we're talking about, it doesn't even have a proper name anymore. At least, not one we could agree on. Some scattered records hint at it. A few travelers wrote things down, but nothing clear, nothing solid. No neat label you can search and get a clean answer. It's like trying to remember a dream from last week. You know what happened. You remember pieces, but the full picture, it slips away the moment you try to hold it. And yet, there are signs, tiny ones, easy to miss if you're not looking. A broken piece of stone, shaped just a little too carefully to be natural. A pattern carved into rock that doesn't match anything nearby. Bits of pottery that don't belong to any known culture in that region. Little things, quiet things, the kind of things history often walks past. For a long time, that's exactly what people did. They walked past. Explorers, traders, even early historians. They saw the land, maybe noticed something odd, shrugged, and kept going. After all, the world is full of ruins. Not every broken wall gets a story, but every now and then, someone would pause. They would look a little closer, and they would start to feel it. That's strange, since that something used to be here. Not just something, but something big. Imagine standing in a wide, open space. There's nothing around you now, just wind moving across the ground, maybe a few scattered stones. The sky stretching endlessly above. But for a moment, you feel like you're not alone, like the air remembers. It's a strange feeling, hard to explain. But people who've been in places like this often say the same thing. There's a kind of presence, not in a spooky way, not like something is watching you, more like something is missing, and you can almost feel the shape of it. That's where our story begins, with a place that feels empty but shouldn't be. Now, let's slow down for a second, because this is where things get interesting. You might be wondering, if an entire kingdom disappeared, how did nobody notice? Good question. The answer is both simple and a little unsettling. People did notice, just not in the way you'd expect. There are a few scattered mentions in very old writings, not full records, more like side notes, almost like someone's writing about something else, then paused and added, "Oh, and there used to be a city here, not sure what happened to it." That's it. No deep investigation, no urgency, no dramatic reaction, just mild confusion, and then they moved on, which, if you think about it, is kind of weird. If a whole kingdom vanished today, it would be everywhere. News, internet, endless discussion. People would not stop talking about it. But back then, silence. Or maybe something close to it. There's another detail that makes this even stranger. In some of these old notes, the tone feels off, not scared, not shocked, just distant, like the writers didn't want to think about it too much. Or maybe they couldn't. It's hard to say, and we had to be careful here. It's easy to jump to wild conclusions. Mystery has a way of pulling the imagination in all kinds of directions. But this story isn't about sudden drama or loud answers. It's about quiet questions, the kind that sit with you, the kind that don't rush. So instead of asking, what destroyed this kingdom? Maybe we start with something simpler. Why was it forgotten? Because disappearance is one thing, but being erased, that's something else entirely. Think about all the great civilizations you heard of. They rise, they fall, but they leave something behind. Stories, names, records, even ruins that clearly tell you what they once were. This kingdom didn't do that. Or if it did, those traces didn't survive, which leaves us with a gap. And humans don't like gaps. We try to fill them with theories, with guesses, with stories that make sense of things that don't quite add up. But sometimes the gap stays, and sometimes the gap becomes a story. There's one more thing you should know before we go any further. This isn't just a tale about the past. It's also about how fragile memory is. Not personal memory, not the kind where you forget where you left your keys. Though, honestly, that happened a lot too. This is bigger. This is about how entire worlds, entire ways of life, can slip out of human awareness, not with a bang, but with quiet fade, like the sound getting softer and softer, until you don't even realize it's gone. And maybe that's the most unsettling part, because if it happened once, who's to say it couldn't happen again? Anyway, don't worry. We're not heading into anything too heavy tonight. This is still a calm journey, a slow one, the kind you can listen to while you relax, maybe even drift off a little. We're just walking through a story, a quiet one, a forgotten one. In the next chapter, we'll take a closer look at the land itself, the place where this kingdom once stood, what it looks like now, and what it might look like before everything changed. Because sometimes if you listen carefully, the land still whispers, and it might have more to say than we expected. If you were to visit this place today, you probably wouldn't think much of it. No grand entrance, no sign that says ancient mystery this way, no long line of tourists taking photos and arguing about angles. Just land, quiet, open land that stretches out under a wide sky, At first glance, it feels ordinary, but give it a minute. Let your eyes settle. Let the noise in your head slow down a little. That's when things begin to feel different. The kingdom we're talking about once stood in a region shaped by contrast. Not extreme, not dramatic, but balanced in a way that made life possible. To one side, there were low rolling hills, not sharp or jagged, but soft, almost like they'd been worn down over time by wind and patience. On the other side, a river moved slowly across the land, not a loud river, not the kind that roars and crashes. This one flowed quietly, steady and calm, like it had all the time in the world. Even now, it still follows the same path. Water doesn't forget as easily as people do. If you stand near it, you can hear that gentle sound, a soft, constant movement, the kind that makes you feel a little more relaxed without really knowing why. It's easy to imagine why people would settle here. There was water, there was fertile ground, the hills offered their protection from harsh winds. The climate, from what we can tell, was mild enough for crops to grow without too much trouble. Not perfect, but good. And sometimes, good is all civilization needs to grow into something much bigger. Now here's where things start to get interesting again, because while the land looks natural, there are small signs that it wasn't always left alone. You might notice stones scattered across the ground, not in neat rows, not forming clear walls, just there. But if you look closely, some of them have edges that are a little too straight, angles that nature doesn't usually bother with. It's subtle. You could easily miss it. In fact, most people do. There are also slight rises in ground, tiny hills that don't quite match the surrounding landscape. They look natural, but something about their shape feels intentional, like they were built up long ago and then softened by time until they blended back in. If you didn't know what you were looking for, you'd probably just walk right over them. And honestly, people have. For centuries, farmers have worked this land, travelers have crossed it, animals have wandered through. Without a second thought, life moved on as it always does. But underneath all of that, something remains. Let's imagine this place as it once was, not in a loud, dramatic way, just a quiet reconstruction. The river, still flowing. But now, instead of empty banks, there are people nearby, maybe washing clothes, maybe filling containers with water, maybe just sitting and talking after a long day. The open land, now filled with structures, homes built from stone and wood, not towering buildings, but enough to form streets, paths that people walk every day without thinking. The hills in the distance, watching over everything like they always have. And somewhere in the center of it all, something more important, a place of gathering, a place of decision, maybe even a place of silence. We'll get to that later. For now, just hold the image, a living place, because that's what makes the present so strange. When you stand there today, all of that is gone. No voices, no footsteps, no signs of daily life, just wind. And sometimes, not even that. There are moments when the air feels completely still, like the land is holding its breath. It doesn't last long, but when it happens, it's noticeable. People who pass through the area have mentioned it, though usually in a casual way, a quick comment, then they move on. Felt a bit quiet there. That's it, nothing dramatic. But when you start collecting those small observations, a pattern begins to form. This place isn't just empty, it feels paused, as if something ended. But the ending never fully settled. Now, let's talk about location for a moment. We can't point to an exact spot on a modern map and say, yes, right here. That would make things too easy. But based on fragments of old writings and physical clues that remain, most researchers agree it was somewhere along an ancient trade path, not a major one, not the kind that connected huge empires, more like a secondary route, the kind used by smaller groups, traders carrying goods between regions that didn't always make it into history books. That's important, because it means this kingdom wasn't completely isolated. People knew about it, they passed through, they saw it, they might have even stayed for a while. Which brings us back to that earlier question. If people knew about it, why didn't they leave clearer records? Why isn't there a detailed account of its rise, its life, and its sudden disappearance? The land doesn't answer. It just sits there, quiet as ever. There is one more detail worth noticing. In certain areas, especially closer to where the center of the old settlement might have been, the ground feels slightly different underfoot. Not enough to be obvious, but enough that if you walk slowly, you might notice a change. A faint firmness, like something solid lies just beneath the surface. Buried structures, maybe, or foundations that once held something important. Time has a way of covering things up, layer by layer. Dust, soil growth, decay, years turning into centuries, centuries turning into, well, silence. And yet, not everything disappears completely. Some traces stay, not to reveal the whole story, just enough to remind us that there is one. So here we are, standing in a place that looks empty, but isn't. A place where a kingdom once stood, lived, breathed, and then somehow slipped away. In the next chapter, we'll look at the first real clues people found, the objects, the fragments, the small pieces that started to turn this quiet land into a question worth asking. Because even the smallest discovery can change everything.